Hi there, my name is Mary Corcoran and this is my colleague Pauline Cullen, and we're here to give you a little spiel about a wonderful new book that we have co-edited together, which will be hitting the online marketplace very shortly now. The book is called Producing Knowledge, Reproducing Gender, and it provides a really interesting sociological insight into aspects of Irish life, which I'm going to ask Pauline to explain for you now.
Thank you, Mary. We're very excited about this co-edited collection, and our book takes a feminist approach in trying to understand how knowledge is constructed in gender terms, but also how ideas about gender structure the production of knowledge in Irish society. One of the main ideas behind the book is to try and examine in a systematic and grounded way why, although we've had a certain amount of success in attaining gender equality in many spheres of life, for certain women, and in particular in certain areas of social and public life, full gender equality remains elusive.
Okay, well, it's kind of interesting, Pauline, the issues that you've raised there in the context of the current pandemic, because we're all living in a very strange version of life, and it's quite different to what went before. But Pauline's been reflecting on how aspects of the lockdown kind of life that we have are actually throwing up some of these concepts about gender inequality, which we have looked at in the book. So do you want to just tell us a bit about that, Pauline?
Thanks, Mary. So the contributors to our book look at the ways in which knowledge production and also knowledge about gender are reproduced in the public sphere, in civil society, and in the political context. And if we reflect at this particularly strange moment of the pandemic and the lockdown, we can see the gendered effects of this crisis playing out in very stark terms, particularly for vulnerable women. First question that appears really on the horizon when we use a gendered lens is thinking about what groups of women are in the front line of this crisis as healthcare workers and as carers, often migrant women, women who are locked into fairly low paid work, but also women in the nursing profession and other ancillary professions. What roles do they have, what risks are they enduring, and how are they being supported in the public policy response? The second way that we can think about gender, particularly knowledge about gender and ideas about gender and how it might inform this response to the pandemic, relates to the very stark reality of the increase in domestic violence during the pandemic. And we know there's increasing international evidence of very high rates of domestic violence. And also if we think about the response to the pandemic, we're also thinking about how much more difficult it is for women experiencing domestic violence to gain access to help and to seek refuge at this moment. And finally, one of the most interesting things that taking this gender perspective on knowledge production reveals is how expertise and who we understand to be the knowledge producers is fundamentally shaped by gender logics. And we really have observed, both of us and many of the contributors to the book also reflect on this, how in many ways expertise is a male domain. And in response to the pandemic we find essentially many male voices, and the result is of course that certain kinds of expertise, particularly we'll say behavioural science and also public health, are gender blind. And so important questions about women's experiences and the gendered penalty of the pandemic aren't always in the sharp focus they should be. And also then we can see this reflected in the ways in which the women are negotiating, navigating and experiencing high levels of social suffering because of the pandemic.
I think that's really helpful, Pauline, to remind us, the usefulness of always thinking about and trying to interrogate these issues, because that's what we're doing in the book. And there are essays about work and workplace, about public policy, about the Eighth Amendment, about game culture and so on. And they all come back to these kinds of issues about gender penalties, about the dominance of male expertise, and about the difficulties for women of truly inhabiting an equal world. And we really hope that you get the opportunity to read Producing Knowledge, Reproducing Gender, and we hope you've enjoyed this small little video cast.
Thank you.